The Rebel Capitalist Show.
Why are interest rates important? Why are free market interest rates important?
Well, I'm so glad you asked. I'm talking my book now. Our little journalistic lemonade stand is called Grant's Interest Rate Observer. You can imagine when there were no interest rates these past years, we have a heck of a thing for our business model. Need a magnifying glass to see the rate of interest. Interest rates are the Swiss Army knives of our finances. You use them to calibrate or measure credit risk. You can tell how creditworthy or not a borrower is by the rate of interest that it pays. Interest rates discount future cash flows. They are the price of time, as someone once said. They help us to set investment hurdle rates. You can think of them as traffic signals in a market economy. They say go fast, go slow. They indicate the level of liquidity available. If things are tight, rates are generally high. And if rates are peculiarly low, as they are today, you can kind of conjecture that the reason might be that somebody has his or her thumb on the scales, and that someone would be our monetary masters at the Federal Reserve. So I have contended, George, that because our interest rates are not discovered in the marketplace these days, but rather imposed from on high, or if not imposed, heavily influenced from on high, that to that extent, we are living in a kind of financial dream world. We are living in a hall of mirrors because things are not what they seem. If interest rates are essentially nil, there is no discipline in the financial markets, or very little discipline. Companies can say, yeah, in year 2047, we'll be earning $6 a share. Oh, that's good. Yeah, very good. Now, a proper rate of interest would check that tendency, because people would discount that claim and say, I'm not going to bet on that, because for one thing, I can get 5% on a treasury bill. I'm not going to take that distant line of fantasy. So in this world of, you can also think of, I guess, as zero gravity or weightlessness. You can imagine some of our billionaires floating around in space when they take their rides into the ether. There's Jeff Bezos floating around, but without interest rates, we all kind of live in a zero gravity financial world. We're kind of floating around, buying NFTs and DraftKings and Bitcoin, all that stuff. Zero gravity, George. That's the concept.
It just pushes people further and further out the risk curve.
I say yes. I think it does. Well, then that's an old observation. One of my biographical subjects named Walter Bagehot, who was a guy who lived in the middle of the 19th century, and he was the kind of monetary muse of the gold standard era. He was credited or blamed for the doctrine that central banks at a time of crisis ought to lend freely, but he also said to lend at a high rate of interest and against good collateral.
Yeah.
Our central bankers today especially recall the idea of lending freely. The rest of it they kind of forget.
Yeah.
But it said, alluding to the national symbol of Britain, he said that John Bull can stand many things, but he can't stand 2%, meaning that a rate of interest as low as 2% would incite a lot of speculation and get a lot of people hurt, because they would start buying the bonds of these emerging markets, in South America and elsewhere. And there were a lot of cycles of emerging market boom and bust during Bagehot's time, and he linked unusually low rates of interest to that kind of financial behavior. And see it today. I mean, pension funds, everyone needing a certain rate of interest with which to satisfy actuarial demands. It's, looking around for things to do. How do we do that when the 10-year treasury is yielding, less than 2%? Well, junk bonds yielding 2.25%, or emerging Russian debt. That seemed promising until about 2 weeks ago. So I don't think we've seen the last of the consequences of this featuring for yield. In fact, I'm quite sure we have not. It'll come out in the wash.